Hi everyone and welcome back to Money Experiment PH. Today we are going to talk about our third video in our ATRAM series, the ATRAM Philippine Equity Smart Index Fund, which was recently added in GInvest by GCash. So this video was requested by many of our subscribers and viewers since we have released the first two videos in the series, that's ATRAM Global Consumer Trends Feeder Fund and ATRAM Global Technology Trends Feeder Fund. I believe there are many people who are showing interest in the Philippine stock market and its demand is huge. So if you have not watched the first two videos, we will be including the links in our description box below. And for the flow of today's video, we will be visiting ATRAM's website, the Key Information and Investment Disclosure Statement or KIIDS. We will also be giving our own opinions and also add some additional background knowledge if we feel further explanation is needed. So again, let's dissect the fund name, ATRAM Philippine Equity Smart Index Fund. So just by this, we already get a brief idea of what this fund is about. ATRAM is the fund management company. Philippine Equity means it is going to invest in stocks. Smart Index. To be honest, this is my first time hearing of Smart Index. Normally, index fund is a passively managed fund that aims to strictly follow a certain index. So we will have an idea what ATRAM meant by Smart Index in the overview. So let's get to the overview first. The fund is designed to generate excess returns compared to its benchmark through an enhanced index approach, combining the elements of passive and active management. According to the webinar of which was discussed by the fund manager, Smart Index means combination of active and passive stock selections seeking to outperform by factor-based approach, adopting rule-based approach to make rational decisions. So for example, when there's a signal for the market going down, the fund will hold more cash, buy defensive stocks, and etc. So how I understand this is that the fund's core is passively managed fund, but they use some active selection in trying to beat PSEi, its benchmark, which we will revisit later. In ATRAM's website, you can see here as of April 16, 2021, the net asset value per unit is at 96 Philippine peso. The one-day net asset value per unit change is at negative 0.65%, and the year-to-date net asset value per unit change is at negative 9.01%. So let's now check out the key facts in the website first. Asset class is equity, which means it is going to buy Philippine stocks. Fund type is Unit Investment Trust Fund or UITF. Benchmark index is Philippine Stock Exchange Index or PSEi. This is an index made up of 30 representative companies among Philippine public companies. We will revisit the benchmark shortly. Inception date is March 1, 2016, so this fund has been around for 5 years. Risk profile is aggressive. So generally, most of fund or investment that are investing in stocks will have an aggressive risk profile since they might be very volatile as there are many risks involved. Currency is in Philippine peso. So the Bloomberg ticker is ATRPHSE. So this is an identifier that we can use in the Bloomberg database. Like this, or you can even compare with other instruments. So the trust fee is at 1.5% per annum. This means the annual fee charge will be more or less 1.5%. The fee is charged in the net asset value per unit, prorated daily according to the declaration of trust. I think a fee of 1.5% for an index fund is kind of expensive, but if you believe that smart index strategy performed by ATRAM will benefit you in the long run, you may be willing to pay. So let us now check the fund facts from the Key Information and Investment Disclosure Statement or KIIDS as of December 29, 2020. So the minimum investment is at 50 pesos. This is a really great feature of the fund since the entry amount is low. I also see that GCash is very active in promoting the GInvest feature. However, one thing to note here is investing 50 pesos only will not make us rich. We need to keep saving, increasing our seed money, and investing in a diversified portfolio. Considering this fund as a starting point and using this tool to nurture your investment habit is a good idea. But let's have realistic expectations regarding the amount entered in the fund. Additional investment is 50. Minimum holding period is none. Net asset value per unit as of December 29, 2020 is at 106 Philippine peso. The total fund net asset value is at 447 million Philippine peso. The dealing date is daily. This means investors can subscribe and redeem daily. Redemption settlement is trade date plus 3 business days, but it will take longer for the money to be reflected in GCash wallet, as much as 5 business days. Personally, it might take longer than that if unexpected incidents happen like app downtime, system failure, and other user interface issues. Early redemption charge is none. There are funds that charge high early termination fees, but ATRAM doesn't, so that's really great. So to explain the Philippine Stock Exchange Index, or PSEi, it is a representative of the general Philippine market. This is a document published by Philippine Stock Exchange, and it shows that Philippine Stock Exchange Index, or PSEi, is the index that contains 30 largest and most active companies in the Philippines. In layman's term, these are the most expensive and more frequently traded in the Philippine Stock Exchange. There are detailed methodologies on how these companies are selected, added, or replaced. Maybe we will leave this topic in our future videos. By the way, the fund has the following top holdings as of December 2020. So the top holding is SM Investment Corporation at 15.4%. Next is SM Prime Holdings at 10.6%. Next is Ayala Land at 9.1%. Next is Ayala Corp at 6.4%, JG Summit Holdings at 6%, BDO Unibank at 5.7%, Bank of Philippine Islands at 4.8%, International Container Terminal at 4.5%, Philippine Long Distance Telephone Company at 4.5%, and Universal Robina Corporation at 3.9%. These companies are constituents of PSEi, or Philippine Stock Exchange Index. The rest of holdings are unknown. I guess they will be distributed among PSEi constituents. So if we compare the Philippine Stock Exchange Index weight and ATRAM's weight, we can find that the figures here are quite similar, again, since PSEi is the index of the fund. So let's briefly browse the client suitability. A client suitability process shall be performed prior to participating in the fund to guide the prospective investor if the fund is suited to his or her investment objectives and risk tolerance. Clients are advised to read the declaration of trust or plan rules of the fund, which may be obtained from the trustee before deciding to invest. So the ATRAM Philippine Equity Smart Index Fund is suitable only for investors who have a high risk appetite, are comfortable with the volatility and risks of the equity fund, have a long-term investment horizon, and are seeking to invest in Philippine equity securities. Under key risks and risk management, there are many risks involved in investing in this product. Some of the risks are, but not limited to, market risk, equity risk, counterparty risk, liquidity risk, reinvestment risk, legal and tax risk. So we have discussed these in one of our previous videos in this series. If you would like to watch, you can click the cue card on your upper right corner, and we will also link it down below in the description box. One thing to emphasize in this document, again, is that investors should be aware and understand that all investments involve risk and that there is no guarantee against losses on investments made in the fund. The fund manager employs strategies to mitigate risks. However, there is no assurance that no loss will be incurred. So since this fund has ease of access and has very low initial amount, I think it will attract many newbie investors. So if you are one of them, you have to know that this is not a depository product, hence it is not insured by Philippine Depository Insurance Corporation, or PDIC, and it can make a huge loss. So just to cite an example, when we were conducting our own due diligence and research on the fund, we've encountered users saying, by the way, this is non-verbatim, "Oh, I've invested 2,000 Philippine peso yesterday, and when I checked my account today, I was deducted 1 cent. Will I still get the centavo back?" So in this example, the investor lost a centavo but already could not bear the loss. What more if it went up to hundreds or thousands? So the key takeaway here is to really invest only with the money that you can afford to lose and money that you do not intend to use in the near future. So next we are going to discuss the fund performance, but before that, let's see how the general Philippine market has been doing by looking at the PSEi, which is the fund's benchmark. So the Philippine stock market has been moving sideways for the last 5 years, although there were notably up and downs. So I would say Philippine market has not been an exciting market as an investor, and it is even more depressing compared to US markets, say S&P 500. While the US market is rallying, Philippine market stayed pretty low. Now let's check out the fund performance. So similar to PSEi, the fund performance is also lateral for 5 years. The fund's key information and investment disclosure statement include graphical comparison between the fund performance and benchmark PSEi. So if we check cumulative performance, 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month are similar. And for 1 year and 3 year, both are negative. The fund went down less than its benchmark during the COVID crash, somewhere between March to April 2020. If we look at the longer term graph above, we can see that it moves almost the same proportion. It looks like most of the time the benchmark performs better since the green line stays above the blue fund line. But when COVID happened, the fund lost slightly less than its benchmark, meaning the fund was able to slightly better defend the market crash compared to its benchmark. Maybe this is contributed to smart indexing strategy that the fund is using. So while looking at the graph, it got me thinking. The fund tracks PSEi almost in the same proportion. If the fund invests in companies included in PSEi, they should have received dividends. So according to ATRAM's website, dividends are reinvested, which means it will be added to the net asset value per unit or NAVPU. However, according to the PSEi index calculation formula, it does not include dividends as you can see in the benchmark. So how come ATRAM Philippine Equity Smart Index Fund, a dividend receiving fund, only tracks PSEi which does not include dividends? So where does the dividend go? I tried to compute how much dividend the fund would receive. This might not be accurate since I do not have the complete information about the fund's full list and the weight of the portfolio as well as the trading history. So consider this as a personal opinion and our best guess. So this is the spreadsheet that lists down 30 PSEi companies, and its composition weight is also written down. By the way, I got this from First Metro Philippine Equity Exchange Traded Fund website. Then transferred data from ATRAM Top Holding Fund's composition and manually extracted the 2020 dividend info from PSEi and Investagram. I wanted to get 2019 and 2018 dividend info, but I could not find any reliable information online. And then I proceeded to compute approximate dividend yield as if the top holdings are their entire holdings. So the number I got was 1.64%. If we consider 10% withholding tax on dividend, the number will become 1.47%. To verify if this is a probable number for now, I checked First Metro Philippine Equity Exchange Traded Fund's 2019 annual report. So the 2019 dividend income over financial asset at fair value of 2018 generated 1.8%. As you can see, the number is kind of similar. So assuming big companies keep their dividend paying pattern similar, I would think 1.64% dividend would be a probable number. So based on what we computed, the reason why the fund was able to closely track its benchmark despite the 1.5% fee is its dividends. So I think it would be fair to think dividends and annual management fees cancel out each other. So now let's see how closely the fund is tracking the PSEi. If you see the graph, I got the PSEi historical data from investing.com and historical net asset value per unit data from uitf.com. I cleaned up the data starting March 1, 2016, which is the fund's inception date. Also converted the PSEi index to 100 on March 1, 2016 to compare the percentage change with ATRAM's net asset value per unit. If we generate a graph based on the cleaned data I mentioned earlier, it should look like this. As you can see, since inception, PSEi, the blue line, stays higher than ATRAM Philippine Equity Smart Index Fund. After COVID crash, the two lines overlapped, which means ATRAM Fund lost less than PSEi. Now I want to check how wide or close the difference between PSEi and ATRAM's net asset value per unit have been. So same with the graph above, ATRAM Philippine Equity Smart Index Fund stayed below PSEi until COVID crash, that's between 0 to negative 3%. During the COVID crash, the difference was from negative 3% to about 2%. So it appeared to have reversed, meaning ATRAM's net asset value per unit fell less during the crash. And recently, it looks like the difference is between negative 1% to 1%. With this, you might have an idea how wide ATRAM's net asset value per unit can divert from the PSEi. One thing to note here is that depending on the starting date of comparison, the difference might get decreased or increased. In our case, we only use March 1, 2016, which is the fund's inception date. Let's now go to pros and cons. So in our opinion for pros, there is an ease of access to this investment option through GInvest by GCash. The initial investment amount is relatively small at 50 Philippine peso. It is a great advantage to be able to have exposure in PSEi since it is impossible for a small investor to have a portfolio that moves similarly with PSEi due to board lot size, the minimum number of shares you can buy in PSE. So it would be a very good starting point for newbie investors. It's managed by professionals. In terms of diversification, as shown earlier in the KIIDS and other reports, the portfolio consists of PSEi constituents. It's Philippine peso denominated, and if the Philippine economy recovers and more money flows into the market, high return might be achievable. For cons, so just a note that most of them are disadvantages when you invest to a fund. First, there's high fees considering it is an index fund. So if you think smart index strategy is worth paying for, you are welcome to invest. It takes time entering and exiting due to the business days intervals from opening and withdrawing the investment. You might lose a lot of money. We did mention in the pros that you can expect a high return due to the aggressive nature of the investment, but likewise, you can expect to lose a lot of money if situation goes unfavorable. As you know, the situation in the Philippine economy is really bad as of now. We don't know how the future will turn out to be, but there are a lot of potential risks that the Philippine economy might suffer further. Finally, you have no control where to put the money, what allocation percentage, since this is the investment manager's decision. Since it is an index fund, more or less, it will be similar to PSEi weight. And to wrap it up, this video has been really highly requested by our viewers, and just like our first videos in the GCash GInvest ATRAM series, we in Money Experiment PH hope that this video will shed light on what this fund is really about, the risks surrounding it, and other information that will help you in your investment decisions. Thank you for watching our video. If you like this video and you've learned, hit the like button and subscribe. This would help other investors in finding this video, and of course, it would also mean as a support to keep this channel rolling. Don't forget to click the notification bell to get the latest updates on our uploads. If you have any comments, let us know on the comment box below. See ya!